Okay, it is time, so I would like to start the webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are, and welcome to the Access to Space for All Initiative 5 First Round Detailed Announcement of Opportunity webinar. My name is Hazuki Mori, and it is a pleasure to welcome you all here. So before we begin, I'd like to start out with some housekeeping rules. First, please use the chat box to ask any questions. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end, but you don't have to wait. If you have any questions, please throw them in the chat box. Second, my colleagues will be active in the chat box, providing you with useful links, and we will be putting up our questionnaire link there as well. So please answer our questionnaire that before you leave. We would really like to hear your feedback on our webinars. And last but not least, if you are on social media, please use the hashtag Access to Space for All and PHI to help us promote this webinar. We are active on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at UNOOSA. So this is what today's agenda looks like. I will begin with giving you an introduction to the Access to Space for All initiative and the PHI program. After that, I will invite my colleagues at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, MBRSC, to give us an introduction to MBRSC and the PHI mission. Next, I will invite my colleague, Jorge Del Rio Vera, to talk about the details of the announcement of opportunity and the application form. And finally, I will introduce Ms. Maitha Sharif for the details on the PHI platform user guide. And after that, as I've said earlier, we will be having a dedicated Q&A session so that we can answer all your questions, technical and administrative. So don't waste time. If you have any questions, please make sure to put it in the chat box. Okay, so I'd like to dive into our little introduction of the Access to Space for All initiative. So the Access to Space for All is a joint initiative of UNOOSA and space agencies, research institutions, universities, and industry to offer access to space research facilities, infrastructure, and information. The aim of the initiative is to develop technical know-how, engineering processes, and infrastructure in the areas of hypergravity and microgravity, satellite development, and space exploration, and of course to promote international cooperation in the peaceful uses of outer space. And partnership is a distinctive feature of our initiative. The Access to Space for All is only possible thanks to the partnerships with the various public and private actors who are contributing to the initiative in various manners. So for this opportunity, we have to thank MBRSC as our partners. Here you can see the core values of the initiative. So first of all, through the initiative, we provide opportunities for a path for capacity building to begin small and leading to complex skills in a responsible and sustainable way by providing structures and guidance to comply with international guidelines. Second, by participating in the initiative, the participants acquire cutting-edge skills for jobs and other opportunities. Next, the initiative fosters international cooperation between the partners from spacefaring nations that are providing the opportunities and the developing nations that are applying. And last but not least, the initiative has a social impact to the country, regions, and of course the young generations, which boosts the interest in STI, science, technology, and innovation, resulting to more chances of investment in this area and inspiring young generations that will be the leaders of the future. Initiative, Access to Space for All fosters SDG number 4, quality education, number 8, decent work and economic growth, and number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. The technology and infrastructure that the participating teams achieve and build, the applications coming from the projects that they develop, and the partnerships they form all contribute to the SDGs. And in the application form of our opportunities, we ask applicants to make links between their projects and the SDGs. So this is what our initiative looks like right now. Our initiative is work in progress, and we are trying to expand our support. Currently, we have 3 components that form the initiative. First is the hands-on component, which is the actual hands-on research opportunities. The second is the tool component, which will be introducing how to use tools such as software, open platforms, and systems to efficiently and effectively utilize the hands-on opportunities under the hands-on component. And the education component provides theoretical foundation to participate in the hands-on component and the tools component. And the components are structured to serve 3 different tracks with 3 different goals that you see on the right-hand side. The hypergravity and microgravity track aims at building capacity for running experiments inside in and outside Earth. The satellite development track aims at building capacity that enables development, deployment, and operation of satellites. And the space exploration track covers different aspects related to space exploration. In this page, you can see the 9 hands-on opportunities we currently have. We have 5 opportunities under the hypergravity and microgravity track. We have 1 currently open right now, which is HyperJES. And we have 3 opportunities under the satellite development track. You are all here to learn about the PHI program today. And we also have the space exploration track. We only have 1 opportunity right now, but we are hoping to expand more. So in this slide, you can see the tool component list that is prepared for the satellite development track. You can find useful open software for development and operations that can be useful for this PHI program. And this list can be found on our webpage. I think my colleagues will be posting this later on the satellite development track page, and you can see the list of different components, list of different tools there. Just to say, please note that the tools are maintained by third parties and we're providing them just as information. Here you can see the different education components we have under the satellite development track. The one you see on the left is KiboCube Academy, which is a series of webinars provided in cooperation with Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, and the University Space Engineering Consortium, UNISEC. These webinars provide fundamental knowledge that you need to know about developing, operating, and utilizing a satellite. We conducted season 1 last spring and season 2 in fall, and there are more contents to come. So I think this information is actually useful for the PHI program as well. So if you're interested, please make sure to check out KiboCube Academy. Also, we have a fellowship program with the Kyushu Institute of Technology, which is also funded by the ministry in Japan, called PNST, Postgraduate Study on Nanosatellite Technology. And this is an opportunity that provides 3 master's and 3 PhD student slots at QTech to study about nanosatellite development. The applications for this year are actually closed already, but we will be opening a new round later in the year. So if you're interested in studying about satellite technology in Japan, please make sure to keep checking out our website. All of you here are interested in the PHI program, so I would like to dive a little bit into the PHI program. So PHI is a cooperation between UNOOSA and Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, MBRSC, which started from this year, actually, implemented under the Access to Space for All Initiative. Actually, the agreement with MBRSC was signed last year, but we are actually opening the first round this year, so we are both very excited to be here. And the aim is to provide entities located in the United Nations member states with the opportunity of having a payload. So maximum 5U, this will be explained more in detail later, but maximum 5U to be hosted on the PHI-1 mission developed and launched by MBRSC. PHI will contribute to the SDGs, especially SDG 4, 8, and 9, by fostering innovation and supporting education on training on skill sets for developing cutting-edge technology. With this, I will end my short introduction to Access to Space for All and the PHI mission. I will give the floor back to my colleagues so that we can get more deep into the opportunity. So with this, I'd like to introduce our first colleague to the floor, who is Mr. Zakaria Al-Shamsi from MBRSC. He will be giving you an introduction to MBRSC and the PHI mission. So Zakaria, I will give you the floor now.
Thank you so much for this introductions. My name is Zakaria Shamsi. It's a Deputy Manager of PHI mission from MBRC, Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. I would like to thank UNOOSA for this organizing the initiatives and make it more globalized to the world. And yes, I will try to make it very quick presentations. I will start with my small video that explaining regardless Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Just give me 1 second to share the screen. This is like a video, small videos, the 2 minutes and a half will introduce about Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. enjoy the videos, I'm gonna start the slide explaining about Mohammed bin Rashid, and then I'm gonna explain about the PHI initiative. At the beginning, Mohammed bin Rashid established on 2006, and we established as the names of Emirates institutions, Advanced Science and Technology, and we changed the names to Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center in 2015. Um, we focus on buildings capabilities of UAE nationalities and UAE to build small satellites on space. And this is like full, the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center is fully Emiratis 100%. And we do have like programs in different fields, like for deep missions or satellite orbits, and we do have like UAE astronaut and other missions for the Mars 117. At the beginning for satellite development programs, we established with Korea companies to gain knowledge, and we traveled to Korea for these technology transfers, and we built two satellites, Dubai Sat 1 and 2, with percentage like 13%, and then we increased more 50% to build this kind of satellite environment. And then we start Khalifa Sat developed that we developed 100% in Dubai in Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, and we launched it on 2018. And MBZSat, it's current, it's a new project. It's gonna be launched in 2023. And this is gonna be more improved from Khalifa Sats with higher resolutions camera. And for deep missions, we had like a great missions with Emirates Mars missions that launched on 2020, and we reached Mars on 2021. And it's almost like in the orbit right now for it's almost 1 year, and we had a great imaging and science data from the instrument that include on the data that we do have, and we share it with all science communities, and they can explore more about Mars missions. And we have the astronaut programs that we send, like Hazza al-Masuri, the first UAE that been to the ISS, and we do have two new members on this program, and hopefully they're gonna be on space with the different missions, with the new missions that they included with NASA. And also we have missions with lunar missions. We call it Rashid mission. This is going to be also a current development, and the teams, they work very hard to finalize it. So hopefully it's going to be launched on this year's, and we will have the first times to be landing on moon. And this is like 100% developed in Rashid Center. And for the major one is like for this current webinars, it's the Payload Hosting Initiatives. I will give introductions about the visions and the objective for this missions. Of course, the major this is our target is to build a small satellites. We focus on 12 unit satellites, and the target is like to include or hosting any payloads on the satellite. And we build like a platform, and we think how we can hosting any satellites. The purpose of this one to try that new technology that we can send it on space, and we can open this approach for anyone that can have their technology, and we can add it on the satellite. We targeting every year. We hope that we can send every year a satellite that we can launch it and try to explore the technology that we have on the space. And this is like a goals to build it very fast and very low cost to verify that the technology of the payloads itself. And the Mohammed Rajab will focus on the satellite structures, and the other entities they focusing on payloads, and we can integrate it on together and launch it. And of course, we start now. We have announced the PHI demo, which is going to be the platform for PHI-1 and with UNOOSA. And this is like a 12U CubeSat. Now we have on develop, and we hopefully we're going to be launch it in this year. We include two payloads here. The primary payloads we have a new technology that using the IoT technology with the 5G, and they want to try it on the space and do the constellation of it and use it for the IoT, which is a new technology that we can see it. And the second payload we're gonna be propulsions, and this propulsion, the unique of it, is they're gonna use the water as a gas as a fuel for this propulsions, and this is very new technology. And we collaborate with two different companies here, and they all targeting for technology and demonstrate these technology on space, and we help them to add their technology in their satellite, in our satellite, and we launch it. And we had the chance to UNOOSA to make it for us more globalized, and they have experience with this organizings and make sure like all these technology. We announced for the PHI-1, and we had the announcement for this PHI-1 with directors from UNOOSA and directors from Hamburg Space Centers. This is more like a good relationship that they can make it globalize, not just for UAE, also outside from UAE, and we can see all the technology and see pick which one is fitting the requirements and make sure gonna be benefit for the world and the future of for the space. This is my slide. Thank you so much for listening.
Sorry for the technical issue there. Thank you very much, Zakaria, for the summary of MBRSC and the PHI mission. So now we'd like to go into the details of the actual announcement of opportunity for this first round. So I'd like to introduce my colleague Jorge Del Rio Vera from UNOOSA, who will be giving you more detailed information about the whole opportunity. So Jorge, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Hazuki. So thank you all for participating today in the deep dive of the PHI opportunity. It's really for us a pleasure that you are here and that you are interested in this opportunity that we are offering together with MBRSC. So let me share my screen. So as Hazuki was mentioning before, this opportunity is part of Access to Space for All, which is a comprehensive initiative that we have in the office that aims at building capacity, infrastructure, and sharing information among the United Nations member states, in particular developing countries. And this initiative has three components: the hypergravity and microgravity track, the satellite development track, and the space exploration track. These are the three tracks of the initiative. When we are talking about PHI, we are talking about the satellite development track. It's a payload hosting initiative in a satellite bus that, as Zakaria was mentioning, has been developed by MBRSC. Each of the three tracks that I was mentioning before has a number of components below: hands-on component, tools component, and education component. The education component aims at developing the theoretical basis to actually take advantage of the hands-on opportunities that are provided. The tools aims at providing a list of tools that can be utilized together with the theoretical knowledge to actually apply for the hands-on opportunities, and the hands-on component contains all the hands-on opportunities. And this is a hands-on opportunity that we are offering together with MBRSC. It's part of a collaboration that we started back in ISC during the International Astronautical Congress. We signed an MOU with Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, and in the memorandum of understanding, we had the provision for starting offering a payload hosting initiative, and we opened the opportunity on the 25th of January. The opportunity was open, and now, since some time has passed, almost a month, probably you all have the time to already look at some of the documentation, and maybe you have some questions. We are going to do a deep dive, so some of those questions can be answered. And if you have questions, please utilize the chat function that we have in Teams. How to find the opportunity? Well, I have it in the slides, but I will demonstrate it to you. So you will have the slides as a reference, but I will demonstrate it, so it's easier for you to follow, and you can see how to do it. I mean, I'm sure that you have done it before, but if you go to the website of the office, UNOOSA.org, there are two ways where you can access to Space for All. One is it's a flagship initiative of the office, so it's showcased very prominently here in this bottom part. So you can click read more and you will be directed to the web page of the initiative. Or alternatively, you can go to our work, Access to Space for All, opportunities. And as I mentioned before, this opportunity is part of the satellite development track. So you can go directly to the satellite development track. So let's take the other route, the read more. And you land in the website of Access to Space for All. There you have some information. You have different menus in case you want to explore a little bit more what the initiative looks like. And you can go to the satellite development track down here. When you go to the satellite development track, what you find is this page. And as I mentioned before, each of the tracks has three components below: an education component, a tools component, and a hands-on component. This is a hands-on opportunity, so you have to go to the hands-on component. And in the hands-on component, you have all the hands-on opportunities that are offered by the office under this particular track, the satellite development track. And there you have 5. And this is the web page that is devoted to the opportunity. So in here, it's, I mean, the most important part of the web page, if you want to get more information about what's going on about this opportunity, is the news. We are constantly updating this news in the page. So you have there a deep dive today on into the opportunity. So you have the webinar there. So it was announced here before, and you have here the rounds and materials of the opportunity. So let's go there and let's examine the documents that you have and what is important for you to actually pay more attention to. So the first document is the announcement opportunity. I have it open already. And the announcement opportunity is the document that describes duties, obligations, the content of the initiative, and also the timeline of the initiative. So it's a very important document. You actually have to read this document carefully if you want to apply to the opportunity. I'm going to mention some of the key points of the document, but of course you have to read it all, just to be sure that you have understood and you have everything in mind, because the whole document is applicable, not only the points that I'm going to highlight. Well, you have thematic area, as I mentioned, Access to Space for All is the satellite development track. It's an opportunity that is implemented together by the office and Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. And very important, the deadline. The deadline for submitting applications to this opportunity is the 17th of April, 2022. So we are talking that you have roughly 2 more months to prepare your application form. And well, you will be notified of the outcome of your application by July 2022. In brief program description, you have a brief program description of Access to Space for All, of MBRSC, of what we are trying to do together. I'm not going to stop there too much. When you go a little bit down, you have the scope of the opportunity. And what we are offering is the host of a payload. MBRSC is actually offering the bus, the satellite platform where to host the payload. And the platform is large, but the volume that is offered through this opportunity is a maximum volume of 5U. I mean, if you have it in mind, 1U is 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeters, so a cube of 10 centimeters of side. What is offered here is 5U, maximum volume. So you can actually try to propose payloads for a volume of 5U if you want. Of course, smaller payloads are also allowed. So, I mean, you don't have to try to fill in the whole volume. What it can happen is that depending on the size that you are proposing and other applicants are proposing, we may be able to combine several payloads in the same satellite bus. So let's say satellite platform. So like that, there is the option that there are more than one awardee through this opportunity. Of the program schedule and milestones, be mindful that you will be, when we are looking at the application form, you will see that you have to provide a schedule, design schedule, operation schedule. In there, you have to be sure that you are respecting the program schedule that is outlined here in the announcement opportunity. What you have to bear in mind is that you have to target a handover in May 2023. So you are providing your applications in April. You will be developing. Once you are notified, you most likely will start developing if you don't have already something that is under development and you're utilizing this opportunity to actually put it in orbit. So after you are notified, you will have until May 2023 for doing the handover. So know that is a little bit less than a year that you have before the handover. Take that into account when you are building your schedule. We are doing webinars as part of this opportunity. So this is basically explaining you what is happening. We may be requesting you additional documentation once we have received your application in order to understand better some of the aspects that you are highlighting in your application. I mean, sometimes in the application, not everything is completely detailed. So if we have questions, we may come back to you and ask you some questions. And then there are a number of technical milestones after the selection. And you have the schedule there. Actually, the schedule is pretty standard. The reviews are pretty standard in terms of space development. There will be a compatibility review done by MBRSC before you are actually submitting the payload, and then once you have shipped, MBRSC will check that everything is correct and in order. So you will be conducting a number of reviews with MBRSC. MBRSC will register the space object. You don't have to worry about that because it's the satellite platform is provided by MBRSC. And then another thing that you have to take specific care, a part of the milestones and the way you are arranging those in your application form, is that you are eligible and you have the best chances for being selected. In here, we explain who can apply and who can be eligible for applying for this opportunity. You have actually this opportunity is quite open. It's one of the opportunities that we have that is most open in terms of access to space for all. You have head of research institutes, universities, public organizations, NGOs, and you even have private companies. Just one note for private companies. I mean, of course, there is private companies are allowed. but we have put a requisite in terms of private companies that to be sure that the private companies that are applying to these opportunities are not big companies. We aim to foster the development of a space economy also through these opportunities. So we and MBRSC are working that these opportunities utilized by companies that are smaller that want to develop a space product. So, so in that you have there the criteria for private companies. Then, I mean, it's very difficult not to be selectable or eligible. How about the selection? How are we going to do the selection? Well, you have to submit us a complete application form, as complete as you can at this stage of development. We will be checking the technical value of your proposal together with MBRSC. So what we are expecting, a couple of things. We are expecting that the payload is contributing to social and economic development, and developing human knowledge and capacity in space science and technology, and enhancing research and development through technology development and demonstration. So this is a very good opportunity for technology demonstration. If you have a payload that you would like to demonstrate, this is the right opportunity for you. You probably will be scored high in these two criteria. We are expecting that the mission is novel with respect to the applying institution. So we are taking into account the developments that have been done by the institution, and we expect that this offers a degree of novelty. Of course, we will be checking that you are able to meet and you are able to perform what you have been describing in the application form. The program schedule, I was mentioning it before. We want that this opportunity is also utilized to foster a space in the country where the awardee is located. And the awardee can be a consortium of different countries. That's not a problem. What we want is that there is communication and there is a transfer of knowledge and transfer of awareness that this opportunity is taking place. So maybe organizing visits to schools to explain that, well, the institution X or the company X is involved in this development with MBRSC and with the United Nations to promote the space and to encourage new generations to study STEM careers. We will be taking into account, very important, the gender composition of the teams, provided that the technical requirements and the proposals have the same scores in the technical requirements. Gender balance will have a very heavy impact. It is a shame for the space industry that between 20 and 30% only of the people that is employed in the space industry are women. So also through this opportunity and through Access to Space for All, we are trying to encourage to have a more balanced composition of the space industry. And okay, of course, your payload is has to be consistent with peaceful uses of outer space and not intended for other purposes. And very important, Hazuki was mentioning before, the link to the Sustainable Development Goals. It is very important that you are highlighting how your payload is helping to advance in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I will talk a little bit more into detail there when I'm talking about the application form. In the roles of responsibility, here you have, after that, you have the roles of responsibility of the different entities. So please take that into account. If you are doing any publication that is stemming out of this opportunity, we will be very thankful, and you would have to include a sentence in the publication, basically acknowledging and thanking the opportunity, which is pretty standard. And you have additional provisions in terms and conditions. I mean, for instance, there is not a guarantee on the launch date because, of course, we all know that the launches may vary widely, depend on launcher availability and depend on other constraints. So we, MBRSC cannot guarantee a launch date. However, there is a period in mind for the launch that is mentioned there, up there in the schedule. And once you have your application fill in, you have to submit it to this email address, and you will have to submit a number of documents. You will have to submit a letter of endorsement from the head of the entity that is submitting the application. There is, even if there is a consortium of entities that are located in different countries, there is one consortium that one entity of the consortium that will be taking the responsibility. We want to have a letter of endorsement from the head of that entity, and of course, letters of endorsements of the others, but the letter of endorsement of the head of entity that is taking the responsibilities is very important for us. And depending on how the application form is structured, we will require more letters or less letters. You will see that in a minute. Then the application form that I will show you in a second, and the due diligence document, which is only applicable, if you see the footnote, it's only applicable for private companies, due diligence. And then with all those documents, you submit to our email address. Please bear in mind that there is a limit of size. So if you have an application that is bigger, you will have to split it in sizes. But that's not difficult. So going to the application form. So again, if we are here in the web page of the opportunity and of this round, you have all the documents that you need here. The application form is the second document that you need. Let me open the application form and put it here in the screen so you can see it. No, this is an announcement opportunity. I'm sorry. Template application form. Let me get rid of this message and make it bigger for you. So in here you have, I mean, the first thing that you notice is that you have instructions on how to complete the application form. Please take them into account. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to judge, and it may be that you are putting things out that you should be filling in. So please read the instructions very carefully. You will have sections that are marked with a code that is M, which are mandatory sections. We want to see those sections fill in to the maximum of your capacity and your knowledge. And you will have sections with an O. And no means that it depends on whether it's applicable to your payload or not. Let's say you are developing a payload that is aiming at communications, and is basically transferring data and utilizing radio frequency. You will see that in radio frequency licenses there is a no, because in general, I mean, the platform, the satellite platform will provide the communication means. The PHI is able to communicate with ground, but you want to test radio frequency anyway. So you will have to, as an optional field that is in the application form, it becomes mandatory for you because you want to utilize radio frequency. So you will have to fill in the section devoted to radio frequency. If you are not utilizing radio frequency, there is a section that is radio frequency licenses. With a no, it's not applicable to your payload, so it means that it's not mandatory for you to fill it in. But if it is applicable for your payload, you have to fill it in. There are things that you may not know. If you don't know something, please write a TBD to be determined, so we are aware of what you don't know. And you have to take care, and the things that you have to take care about later on. So you see here you have the different M's, O's, depending on the arrangement of the corporation. So let's start for the beginning, and I'm going to go only through the most important sections. Okay, you have to provide the title of your project, if you have a name, an executive summary. The executive summary is the summary of your application. It's basically summarizing in 150 words your application. What you are trying to do, what your application is, how you are going to communicate, how it's connected to the Sustainable Development Goals. Everything that you can summarize in 150 words, but it's the whole application what you are summarizing there. I mean, there are some confusion between the executive summary and another summary that is coming later on. Certificate. So this is a very important page that we need. It can be that there are more than one organizations. You have here a space for 2 organizations, actually. What we are requiring is that there is, allow me 1 second. Let me put this. So one thing that you have to be sure is that there is one project coordinator. What we need is one project coordinator. That is the person that is taking the responsibility of the whole project. Then that project coordinator will belong to an organization. That is applying organization number 1. But there might be that there are other organizations that are contributing to the project. So you can actually extend this section as much as you need and include the other organizations that can be participating. If in here we have more than one applying organization, the letters that I was mentioning before, we are requesting 1 per applying organization. Okay, so here you have the information about the person that is responsible, the head of the applying organization, information, and team composition. Well, first, you have an optional field here. You see, there is a note. What does it mean? It means that maybe it is only one entity that is applying, so there is no cooperation. So this section, you don't need to fill in. But maybe there are several applying organizations. So this section, you will have to fill in because you will have to describe how those different organizations are cooperating. You see the distinction between the O and the M. Then you have the project coordinator information and then team member description. We are asking gender because, as I mentioned, we want to have, it's one of the selection criteria that we have. And there you have another field that is optional, which is external support. Let's say that you are collaborating with another entity, but they are not involved in the application, but they said that they are going to provide you access to a laboratory or access to some facilities to utilize, or they are going to provide you with some components for free. I mean, those are external support. We don't want a letter necessary from as an endorsement letter from the external support, but we want to see the external support listed there. So if you have that external support, maybe another organizations are helping you, but are not part of the actual application, you have to list them there. Let's say that Space Agency X is providing to University Y access to a lab. They don't want to be involved. That space agency don't want to be involved in this project, but they are providing this facility. So they are not an applying organization, but they are external support. Okay, and this is the confusion that I was mentioning before. You have an executive summary in the beginning, and here you have a proposal abstract. Here, what we want is very concrete. Your payload. Talk about your payload. Not about the entire proposal, communication plan, SDGs. No, we want to hear about your payload. We want to understand better your payload. So the executive summary has the idea that we understand your proposal at a glance when we are receiving your application. The proposal abstract has as a goal that we understand your payload at a glance. So they have 2 different scopes. And there you have different aspects that we are requiring you to provide: mission statement, objectives, with primary and secondary objectives, relevance to the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is information that we need to value what you are trying to do. This is putting in context. This section 4 is helping us to put in context your application. I would like to raise your attention. To raise your attention to the relevance of the Sustainable Development Goals. Access to space for all, Hazuki was mentioning very clearly before, that is contributing to mainly 3 Sustainable Development Goals: SDG 4, SDG 8, SDG 9. But your payload can contribute to more. Maybe you want to put a camera to monitor climate change, for instance. So you will be contributing to another Sustainable Development Goal. So let me go there. So the United Nations has a web page devoted to the Sustainable Development Goals. In here you have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure that my colleagues can put the link in the chat. And in there, you see that, there is different goals and information inside. So let's go to more info here. And for instance, in Sustainable Development Goal number 1, which is end poverty in all forms everywhere. Well, this is the goal. The goal is pretty generic, but inside the goal you have what is called targets and indicators. And if you are actually going down there, they are much more specific. And in particular, let me go down. You have, for instance, target 1.5, build economic resilience and reduce exposure and vulnerability to climate-related events and other economic, socioeconomic, and environmental shocks and disasters. So if you have a payload that is trying to mitigate climate change, you are connected also to Sustainable Development Goal number 1 through target 1.5. What we want when you are specifying your contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals is that you are not only staying at the development goal side, you go down to different levels. You have the target level and you can go even to the indicator level, right? You have the different indicators there to explain how your payload is contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. That's very important for us. There are many things that are very important for us, but this is one of them. Then you have to explain the outcomes and deliverables, the novelty of your payload, and how you are going to divide the work in your the work of putting the payload together. So the work breakdown structure. If you are partnering with other institutions, we want to see which institution is responsible for which work package. So this is also helping us to understand how the partnership is articulated inside the consortium that is applying to the opportunity. And then you have requirements, the different requirements that are inside your payload, the requirements that you are going to utilize, the mission requirements, the requirements that you are going to use to design, and the requirements that you will have for operations. There is a reference here, and a colleague from MBRSC will be explaining that. This is a very important document that you have to pay attention to, the PHI platform user guide. And you have to take into account those, the requirements that are stemming out from that user guide in your requirements. Then you have a more detailed description of your payload. So we are going more into technical details. So these are normal technical details that you can actually fill in. They are very, very descriptive. Every field has a description. When you are including a block diagram, please include the block diagram as much detail as possible at subsystem level at minimum. So if you have different subsystems, a control subsystem inside your payload, measuring subsystem, data handling subsystem, include those so we understand how your payload is working. If you have please include the list of components at the level that you have. And then you have another section which is about the description of the different interfaces between the payload and the bus. And there are a number of interfaces that you have to take into account and you have to describe in the payload, and you have the description in here. As I said, when we are asking for this diagram, payload block diagram, what we are referring basically is that you are providing us a diagram of section 5.2.4. So how the different subsystems of your payload are built and how they work. And you have different subsystems there. You see that some of them have a node, some of them no, like the communication subsystem, for instance, to communicate with ground. You have that in the platform, so you don't need actually to provide this if you are not intending to provide a communication platform, communication payload. Again, the platform is providing ADCS, so you may be interested in testing your own ADCS, so you may have to fill in this section or not, depending on your payload. And Zakaria was mentioning before that there is one entity that is utilizing this platform for testing a propulsion system based on water. So again, if you have a propulsion system, there you have a section for that. If you don't have a propulsion system to test, it's optional, so you don't have to fill it in. Okay, then additional information, ground segment. Maitha will go a little bit more into details on this. Note that there is a ground segment that is provided by MBRSC. So in here, what you have to explain is not antennas or anything, unless you have a specific communication payload, is how you are going to interface with MBRSC ground segment and how's your part of the ground segment organized. So how you are handling the data, how you are processing the data that you are receiving, for instance. Then safety considerations, if there is any technical heritage where your proposal is building upon, we would like to see that here. We would like to understand that it's not like a quantum leap in terms of development, that there has been a build-up. So we are more sure of the feasibility. We can assess the feasibility of your proposal with the technical heritage. Then the different description of the facilities that you may have, testing, assembly, your different plans for the different requirements that you have put together. And as I mentioned before, you have an outline of the schedule in the announcement opportunity. Here is where you have to include it. And that is particularly relevant for the development schedule. So we will see the milestones that are reflected in the announcement opportunity, how you are integrating them in your development schedule. Then you will have an operation schedule. Maybe your payload has to be operated in different phases that require a certain amount of time. So we would like to see how your operation schedule, or maybe you don't have phases in your payload. Normally there are like two, a commissioning phase and an operation phase minimum, but it depends on you. So explain to us how the operations of your payload work. If there are any aspects that need to be taken into account for end of life. Let's imagine that you are putting a battery inside your payload for whatever reason. If you are looking at the space debris mitigation guidelines of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, you will see there that you need to be sure that your batteries are discharged when you are ending the mission. So things like that, depending on your payload. As I said, that's why it's optional. You have to take it. You have to include it there. Budget, we want to understand how much is going to cost what you want to do, and how much money actually you have. What is provided in the opportunity is the hosting, and not only the hosting, is also the launch. So MBRSC will be taking your payload, it will be integrated in the satellite platform, and from that moment onwards, MBRSC will be taking responsibility and it will be launched, and they are taking care of the launch and also the operations of the satellite platform while in orbit. So of those things, you don't have to care. Those are provided in the opportunity. But the development cost of your payload, those are covered by you. Or if you have to travel for whatever reason, maybe there are testing facilities that are outside your country or in another part of your country outside of your institution, you have to include those costs here. So we want to understand how much it's going to cost you and how much budget you have secured and what is the budget plan for securing the rest. So we want to understand the financial feasibility of your proposal. It's very important for us. Then you will need to transport it to UAE. Note that you have to take care about the customs arrangements, and the transport is the responsibility of the entity that is applying to this opportunity. So be sure to understand those procedures. Sometimes there are some, depending on what you are trying to export, sometimes it's not straightforward. As I mentioned, some of the things that you might be needing, you may need a frequency allocation license. You may be, depending on the country, an Earth observation license. For instance, in some countries, they require when you are putting a camera in a satellite that you have a license. It depends on your national legislation, so be sure that you take those into account. And other elements that might be needed for your application. Then you need to provide us a feasibility analysis, which are the arguments in favor of the feasibility of your proposal, including technical heritage, as I was mentioning before, the resources that you have, etc., and the risks. Which are the main risks that you may have? Let's say that you don't have the budget secure at the moment that you are submitting your proposal, but you are in contact with different potential donors that will provide you the additional funding. So maybe you assess that, okay, there is a small risk that those donors will not provide their contribution, but maybe you have a mitigation strategy for that. So we want to see that. We want to see the risks and the mitigation actions that you will put in place for those risks. Communication and dissemination plan, how you intend to communicate about your application, about the developments that you are doing, about your payload, and any other supporting documents that you want to provide. This is a list. So it's also to help you breaking down your application into pieces. What we want here is a list of the documents. We don't want the documents. So you put the reference here of the document. We are providing, I don't know, curriculum vitae of principal investigator. Okay, fantastic. We know when we are looking at your application that we should have received also separately, as a separate document, the curriculum vitae of the principal investigator or the project coordinator. If you have support letters, I mean, maybe some of the donors that I was mentioning before for the financial contribution, maybe you have some letters of them saying, yeah, we are going to contribute with X amount of money. Okay, you can list the document here saying, okay, letter from donor X. And then we know that that letter exists. And we can check that the letter exists in the documents that you have provided. But here it's kind of a checklist. So it helps you being sure that what you are submitting is complete, and it helps us to understand that your application is also complete. So that there is no missing documents that you were intending to send us and is not there and is missing. So we can understand that there are missing documents, and we can go back to you and say, hey, we need this missing document because you forgot to attach it. Abbreviations of reference, and this is basically the application form that you have to fill in. This is the template. One thing that I would like to mention before giving the floor back to Hazuki is that you have a lot of resources in the theoretical resources that may help you building your application. In the tools component, currently we have mainly operations tools, so maybe there are some of the tools that are applicable for your case, but there is a lot of risk mitigation in there, so that is potentially not applicable depending on your payload, but it potentially not applicable and you will not be able to use that. But you have here a number of webinars that some of them are providing you with better insights of how to fill in some of the sections of the application form. And for instance, you can have a look at the experience of past winners, the people that were awarded in the past access to space for all opportunities. So you can understand what they were doing and what was the impact that was causing. You have another one, how to raise awareness about your product, about your project. So basically this is helping you to build your communication or taking into account some ideas to build your communication and dissemination plan. So this is very good material that you can have a look to actually fill in your application. You have focus on how women are participating in Access to Space for All initiative, how you showcase gender there. And there are also a number of specific webinars. I mean, there will be the 5 webinars. This webinar will be posted online, but you may find interesting some of the KiboCube webinars because they were in the KiboCube Academy webinars. Let's go there. So you have the opportunities, so that they are maybe not that important for you, but you have several sections where it's talking about this mainly at CubeSat technologies, because it's KiboCube is an opportunity that we have with JAXA, which is aiming at deploying a 1U CubeSat. But there are things about launch and operations for your payload might be applicable. So there are also information about test facilities. You have also a number of pre-designed of pre-recorded lectures. They are all available in our YouTube channel. You have the PDFs and also the videos there explaining in detail those. So maybe you want to utilize some of that knowledge there. So as I was mentioning, the initiative is very comprehensive. It has these 3 components for a reason, and the elements of one component can be helping you in filling the applications for opportunities in the hands-on component level. So have a look at all the material that is available in our website, because it will be very useful for you for filling in the application. And with that, thank you very much for your attention. Please don't hesitate to ask your questions in the chat. Kazuki, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jorge, for your description. We have a lot of questions coming in, so thank you to everyone who are sending in the questions. We will answer them at the end when we do our question and answer part. So with this, I'd like to introduce our last speaker, who is Maytha, Ms. Maytha Sharif from MBRSC. She will be giving us more details about the PHI platform user guide. So with this, I will give you the floor, Maytha.
Thank you, Hazuki. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon from Dubai. This is Maytha Sharif from Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. So I'll be going through Payload Hosting Initiative, the user guide. I saw so many technical questions in the chat box. I hope my presentation will answer your questions. So PHI platform is a 12U CubeSat structure developed by Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, and it's designed to be modular and provide flexibility in power, mass, and data interfaces to host multiple payload with different uses and missions. So here we have the block diagram, which shows the top level architecture of our PHI platform. We have the OBC, which is centralized for the satellite to collect telemetries and send telecommand through different interfaces, I2C, SPI, UART, and CAN. And we have 2 communication subsystems here, UHF, VHF communication subsystem, and S-band communication subsystem for high-speed data. And we have here the electrical power subsystem, which is designed also by Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center to provide power with different voltage levels to the payload to satisfy their need. We have the ADCS subsystem, which is procured from one of CubeSat companies here in market. And we have the umbilical interface board to support the AIT interfaces during testing. This table shows the specification of the platform or the mission. We have lifetime from 1 to 2 years, orbit type sun-synchronous orbit, orbit altitude 500 to 600, which will be selected after selecting the launcher. Satellite mass is 18 kg, power generation is 38 watt as maximum power. Bus voltage is 14.8 volt nominal voltage. Communication bands, we have UHF, VHF, and S band. The data rate for UHF and VHF is 9.6 kbps, and for S band is 1 mbps. The control accuracy is 5 degree, and data interfaces, we have multiple data interfaces, I2C, CAN, UART, and SPI. The maneuver speed is 90 degrees in 160 seconds. So moving to the satellite bus design, I'll start with the electrical power subsystem. As I mentioned, it's designed by MBRSC with efficient and high power subsystem. We have unregulated voltage rail 13 to 16.4 volt provided to the payload. Then the payload can have their conditioning system there to the level of voltage they need, or they can interface with the regulated voltage we have here, 3.35 volt with a maximum of 3 ampere output current and 12 volt with 4 ampere output current. And also we have overcurrent and over voltage protection for these switches provided from the EPS subsystem. The switches will be controlled by the onboard computer to switch them on and off depending on the payload operation that will be explained in the application form. We have here below the table showing the pin assignment of the connectors for the payload power interfaces with their wire gauge preferred to be able to interface with the electrical power subsystem. If the payload is using the stacking connector using PC 104 standard, here we provided the pin assignment for these connectors to interface for the power and the ground. Since we are missing here in the user guide the CONOPS or operation section, we provided here an important information for the payload to calculate their power budget. Is that the maximum power consumption for the payload 20 watts for 20 minutes, which is approximately 21% of duty cycle. If the payload has a higher power consumption, we can evaluate that, but by reducing the duty cycle. The evaluation will be after submission of the proposals from the applicants. The grounding scheme we are using here is a star grounding scheme where all the grounds will be returned to the EPS subsystem. For the data interface section, we are providing multiple data interfaces. First one is I2C. Important note here for the payloads who are designing their payload by themselves to not add I2C pull-up resistor as it's available from the platform side. Also, we are providing SPI interface and CAN interface. The same note is here to not add termination resistor. It is available from OBC side. Also, we are using CSP over CAN interface. Here is the packet structure of CSP showing all the headers and details. And then how the CSP is dividing the CAN packets here also. The final interface we have in the data interface is the UART. And also we are providing PPS signal if it's needed by the payload to be synced from the GPS. Below is tables for the data pin assignment, either from the stacking connector or from standalone connectors for I2C, SPI, CAN, and UART, which is normally they are standard interfaces, but what you have to care about is the wire gauge. For the data storage, we will be providing 30 GB storage and SD card for payload data storage. However, if the payload has their own storage in the payload, they can store their data, and then during the communication with the ground station, the data can be downloaded either directly or through the OBC. The RF interfaces, we have two communication subsystems, UHF, VHF, and S-band. The UHF, VHF communication subsystem is used during LEOP since it's omnidirectional and has a higher coverage. And then it will be used as a redundancy and for a lower data rate, which is 9.6 kbps. And we have S-band communication subsystem for uplinking large size of data and files and downloading payload data if they have large size of payload data. Here on the table showing some specs of both communication subsystems, frequency and modulation schemes. Here some important notes about the contact with the ground station. The payload can download 30 MB per contact using S-band link, considering 8 minutes contact time. This will help the applicant to do their link budget analysis or data flow analysis for the and add it to the application form. For the mechanical interface, it's a 12U CubeSat structure with 5U volume reserved for the payload with its harness, which is approximately 5 kg provided. The payload can be provided in different forms, either a PCB with 95.5 millimeter by 90.17 millimeter. The PCB can be stacked using PC104 connector standard, or the payload team can design their own bracket to be interfaced with our mechanical structure. Here are some pictures showing the location of the PCB on the mechanical structure and the height, so they can select the right stacking connector on their PCB to fit in with the below PCBs we have. Here is ICD showing the dimension of the PCB, the mounting hole location, and the dimension also of the stacking connectors. And as I mentioned, if it's not a PCB to be stacked, the payload can design their bracket following the mounting holes here, and then we can interface it with the mechanical structure. For the thermal interface, since it's hard to provide accurate numbers for the thermal subsystem to be interfaced with the payload, since it depends on the power consumption of the payload and their operation, and should be assessed by an analysis. We will be providing an external interfaces for heaters and temperature sensors. So 2 heaters will be provided from the platform on the payload and will be controlled and powered by the platform. It will be switched on and off by the OBC and powered by EPS. The same goes with the temperature sensors. The data will be collected by OBC. If the payloads prefer to have their own heaters or temperature sensor within the payload subsystem, they should take care of the interface and power as part of their payload subsystem. The attitude control subsystem, it's a stand-alone from the OBC. Here are some specs of the ADCS capability. We will be providing some modes depending on the payload operation, which is stand pointing, nadir pointing, target tracking, and delta V pointing. And here's some of the sensors and actuators we have in our platform for ADCS subsystem. For the ground station, we have the ground station network in UAE for S-band and MBRSC and UHF, VHF in some universities in UAE. Also, we have a planning tool which will be scheduling the contacts and the files to be uploaded to the satellite through MBRSC Mission Operation Center. And as I mentioned before, we have the S-band as full duplex for uplink and downlink, UHF for downlink, and VHF for uplink. For safety and quality, we would like to have a material list to be provided. With the material list, we will be evaluating the outgassing, flammability, resistance to thermal cycling, resistance to radiation, vacuum, and stress corrosion cracking. So this is the overall description about PHI user guide. I'll be happy to answer any more technical questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Metha, for the really detailed explanation about the user guide. It is on our webpage. I've posted the link on the chat as well. It's under the first round document. So please take a close look at this document, read it again. And as Metha said just now, if you have any questions, please send it to us and we'd be happy to answer them. But because we have all the people here now, if you have any questions, please make sure to write it in the chat. So with this, I'd like to move on to the Q&A session of the program. I would like to thank everyone who has sent in their questions, and we're still open to any. So if you have any more, please write it in the chat. I also believe some of them have been answered just through this presentation by Metha, but we will start going through them. So the first question was from Aisha, asking, can one institute participate with more than one idea? Maybe Jorge, I'll give you the floor and you can answer this question.
Yes, actually, yes, there is no provision that is forbidding you to do that. In general, my advice is that you are focusing in having a better application on one of your ideas, not having your time spread over multiple applications and being very shallow. But there is nothing preventing you to send several applications. It's not a problem. All applications will be evaluated with the same criteria.
Thank you very much, Jorge. I think that was clear. If you have any more questions regarding that, please write it in the chat, Aisha. I'll move on to the next one, which is from Christopher Luwanga. He was asking, can we choose where to place our payload on the satellite? So I believe there was a picture that showed which area of the PHI satellite that the 5U will be placed, but will they be able to choose exactly the spot? So maybe I'll give this question to Metha.
Yes, so we are very flexible in that, and if they have their mechanical requirement regarding their COG or pointing or field of view, they can mention that, and we will be evaluating the location based on their recommendation or preferability.
Thank you very much, Metha. I think that was a very clear answer. Going on to the next questions. These are both from Aisha, so I'm going to address them together. Is there a camera on board the satellite, and what kind of data does the satellite generate? Some of it might have been answered, but maybe you can elaborate again, Metha, on this point.
There is no camera on the platform as we are providing the bus. The payload, as we are expecting the payload to be offered by the applicants in this initiative.
Thank you, Metha. There was another question about what kind of data does the satellite generate. This, I guess, also links to the payload that will be offered by the teams, but if there's anything to add to that.
Yes, mainly the payload data, and the rest are the spacecraft telemetry to check the health of each subsystem.
Okay, thank you very much. If you have any additional questions regarding that, Aisha, please write it in the chat box. The next question is from Caleb. So he is asking about if there is if there's technical infrastructure that is required, how can countries with limited resources participate? I'd like to give this question to Jorge. We have some examples of past teams that have collected funding through crowdfunding and other ways, but yeah, maybe I can give this question to Jorge.
So I take this question that you would like to put a payload together, and maybe there are some facilities that you may need maybe for basically assembling or testing. Well, there are several ways you can tackle that, and unfortunately, we don't want to intervene on that because it's part of the flexibility that you will have to negotiate with different parties. I mean, maybe there is a space agency in your country, and you would like to discuss with them that they are providing access to some of the facilities that they have, or maybe there are some countries, some neighboring countries that have facilities and they are able to allow you to utilize those facilities. We have a very good example. We have under KiboCube, there is one team that is basically developing their satellite, and they are testing some of the capabilities of the CubeSat in a neighboring country space agency facilities. There are some other teams that have decided to utilize some of the funding that they have to contract another company to actually provide some of the services for them. That's also allowed. So there are a suite of possibilities. Hazuki was mentioning, for instance, to obtain funding. One of the entities organized a crowdfunding campaign to actually finance some of the developments that they had. So it's up to your creativity and up to your establishing links with different institutions and potential partners. In the UNOOSA website, you have a list of space agencies from all over the world. So maybe you want to locate some space agency that may be able to provide you some assistance. And I don't know, and this I left to my colleagues in MBRSC, but maybe you can also get in touch with MBRSC, and I'm sure that they can make available some of the facilities for a price available. So there are options, but you have to evaluate the ones that are better for your project.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Does our MBRC colleagues have anything to add to this?
I think Jorge can, he answers very clearly. Yes, we will evaluate this and see if it is available and what is required from the facilities, and we can check with the pilots depend on how what is the requirements exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to go to the next question, which is, can we preserve the intellectual property of our payload, or is it required to make everything public? I'll give this question to both UNOOSA and MBRSC.
I can start. We don't have any requirement on UNOOSA side on IPR, so intellectual property rights. We are not requiring you to make public your application or things like that. I mean, your application can stay without being public. You can opt if you want to make it public. We can make it public in the Access to Space for initiative to help other countries or other institutions to actually understand how a payload is generated. But on our side, no, there are no IPR that we are keeping. And when you are doing publications, the only thing that we are asking you is basically to acknowledge and to thank the office and MBRSC from the UNOOSA side.
Thank you, Jorge. Anything from the MBRSC side?
It's gonna be similar concept of UNOOSA. The only things is like we can mention on the medias before. They cannot mention it after the missions, and I think it should be published by UNOOSA or MBRC to publish on us these documentations. But we don't have like a signatures for publications, but yes, just It's like we cannot announce before somebody, so it should be announced the missions and then should be announced the publication itself.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to move on to the next question, which was answered in the chat, but I'll refer to it anyway. It was, can engineers from space agencies participate in this competition? So for the eligibility, please look at the eligibility criteria of the announcement of opportunity form. It is stated very clearly who is eligible, and space agencies are research institutions and governmental agencies that are eligible for this opportunity. So yes, we would love to have applications from different space agencies.
Can I add one little comment, because I think the question may refer to that. We are not accepting applications from individuals. I mean, I just want to make that clear. The individuals are associated with institutions or private companies or research institutions or whatever. We want that institution is providing endorsement of the work of the person that is submitting the application. So no applications from individual persons.
Yes, thank you for the clarification, Jorge. If you fill in our application form, you will understand that you need backup from your institution. So yes, please make sure that you have support from your institution when you apply. Okay, the next two questions were rather technical things that were answered by Metha, so I think I will skip these two. I see another question in the chat asking about the launch date of the satellite. I don't think it's exactly set, but Metha or Zakaria, if you can maybe give us a rough idea of what you have planned again.
For the PHI-1 launch, hopefully we're targeting next year. It's Q4 next year, so it depends on the contract of the launchers and availability of space of CubeSat on this launcher providers.
Okay, thank you very much, Zakaria. The next question was, will there be more editions of PHI? Yes, we hope so. We are still working on this first round, but we will be definitely working with MBRSC to provide you with more opportunities for this mission. As Zakaria was explaining in his presentation, the PHI mission, they have many more planned, one per year. So yes, UNOOSA and MBRSC hope to provide you with more options. And this question is the last one. I'm looking at the time, and I think it's a very important question as well from Ali. Are there any liabilities in case the payload fails or it jeopardizes the whole mission? A question about liability. Maybe I can give this question to Jorge and of course to our colleagues at MBRSC.
There is some reference to liability in the announcement of opportunity, and let me show you again. So there is no liability in case for instance the platform fails or it doesn't reach orbit or anything. There is no indemnification going to. There is no liability going to the applying entity. There are cross waivers of liability for damages by either party. So basically you are waiving, and there is a waiver there. There are a lot of tests and a lot of reviews that are happening before you are placing your payload in the platform. So hopefully nothing will go wrong and everything would be anticipated. But in the terms and conditions in the announcement opportunity, you have the elements concerning the liability.
First question is from Antonios. I see that it has been answered in the chat, but I will refer to it. So out of the 12U, his question was the remaining 7U are reserved for the bus, ADCS, EPC, and other primary payloads. and this opportunity is only for 5U. I believe it was explained in Metha's presentation, but maybe Metha, if you can elaborate on that part as well. So can you explain about the 7U that is not part of our opportunity?
Yes, the 7U are reserved for the satellite bus, including all the subsystem, electrical power subsystem, communication, CNDH, and ADCS subsystem. And the remaining from the 12U is 5U, which is reserved for the payload.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that answer was very clear. The second question was from Basam, asking about the orbit that PHI will be in. It was also mentioned in Metha's presentation, but Metha, if you can answer this question as well. So what kind of orbit will the PHI mission be launched into?
It's sun-synchronous orbit, as we are usually targeting the common orbits to have an easier selection of the launch.
Thank you. Perfect. The next question is from Ayman. It's about the administrative process. So if the optional parts in the document are not applicable, should I remove it from the document or just write something like NA, non-applicable? Yes, please do not remove it from the application form. It will confuse us when we do our selection process. So if you can leave it in and just write NA in the box, that would be the best for us, I think. The next question is from Prudence. For those who don't have any testing or building facilities in their country, how can they take part in it? So maybe I'll give this question to Jorge. Through the different opportunities through Access to Space for All, I would say that not all the applicants had these facilities. So they usually partner up with some universities or research institutions that had these facilities or testing capabilities. But yeah, Jorge, maybe you can elaborate on this.
Yeah, thank you. So basically what Hazuki was mentioning, you will have to find ways to either partner with someone else. In the UNOOSA website, we have a list of space agencies, and we know that previous applicants to to some of our opportunities were actually partnering with space agencies in the neighboring countries that were allowing them to utilize their facilities. Maybe there are facilities that you are not aware of in your country. Even if they are not available in your institution, it doesn't mean that they are not available in the country. So you will have to do some research. And of course, if nothing like that works, you may try to procure access to those facilities. For instance, I'm sure that it would be possible that you can procure access, and then you can negotiate with MBRSC to have access to some of their facilities. But there are also other commercial providers that can provide you access for a fee. So that depends on the investigation that you do before and the amount of funding that you have, basically.
Thank you, Jorge. I see that Basam has an additional question to that, and I think this would go to MBRSC. So would MBRSC provide testing services for a fee? So Metha or Zakaria, if that's possible, could you elaborate on that?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer this questions. So the testing we're gonna be only with the integration with the spacecraft. We will do environment test that's gonna be including vibration and shock test, and also thermal vacuum test. Only after integrations. The FM.
Thank you, Zakaria. I think the question was that if the applicants paid a fee, if they would be able to use our facilities beforehand, so before the integration, before they hand the experiment over to you.
Sorry, providing testing service for a fee, you mean the testing facility or this testing service?
I think they mean by testing service. So before they hand it over to you, if you have some necessary tests that you need them to conduct beforehand, if they could, have the services for that. But if that's not needed and if everything is going to be done afterwards, I guess this is not needed as well.
Yes, as I said, after the integration with what is MBRC will do is doing the testing for environmental test. These can after with integration, but if the payload they gonna do their own testings, then they have another test to do it as a functional. This is up to the payload service or payload who building the payload.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question was actually about if the recordings of this webinar will be provided. So as Wenbin has answered in the chat, we will be posting the presentations and of course the recordings of the webinar on our website, but also our YouTube channel. I hope that we will be able to do it during this week. So please, stay tuned and wait. But yeah, it should be uploaded this week. Okay, besides that, I don't see any more questions. This is your chance, actually. We have MBRSC here to answer your technical questions. We have us, UNOOSA, here to answer your administrative questions. So if you have any, please shoot them in the chat right now. While I wait for a minute, I would like to kindly ask, please answer our questionnaire form before you leave. We would really, really appreciate your feedback to our webinars. We would like to conduct better webinars for everyone. So if you have any feedback, please provide it through the link that Wenbin just shared in the chat. Okay, if not, I don't see any questions coming in. Oh, there's one question about how can we contact you. Thank you for the question because that was on my next slide. So this is our UNOOSA Access to Space for All email address. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach us here at this email address. We will be replying to you. And yeah, with this, I think that we have answered all the questions. So I would like to thank our colleagues at MBRSC for their presentations. I would also like to thank Jorge for his detailed explanation. And I would like to thank everyone who came to this webinar. Thank you for being such an involving crowd and asking us a lot of questions. So with this, we wish you luck. This opportunity is open until the 17th of April, and we hope to receive a lot of applications from everyone. So thank you very much. Take care and have a nice day, everyone. Bye.